Hey guys, Omar here, and today I'm going to show you my favorite button dial settings for my Fujifilm X-T3. This will also work for an X-T4, but before we start with that, I wanted to give you a huge hug and a huge thank you for all the comments you left on my last video, which was titled I'm a Failure, which basically, if you haven't seen it, the gist of it is that sometimes we set goals that we don't achieve. Sometimes we think we're achieving a goal and you come back at the end of the year and you realize you haven't. So thanks a lot for all your wonderful words and making me realize that you like what I'm doing, and I'll continue to do it. And a special thank you to Chris from Pal2Tech, his channel. He actually made a follow-up video calling me a winner, which really, like, the tears were welling up. And every creator, every YouTuber, every artist kind of must go through what I'm going through, which is kind of like, why am I doing this? It was really nice to hear Chris's words of encouragement, and you know, it's always nice when you're supported by others. So in honor of Chris and Pal2Tech, we have a special guest on today's episode, and it's my friend the Child, okay, also known as Baby Yoda. So he's gonna hang out with me while I show you the button dial settings for the Fujifilm X-T3. So this, Chris, goes out to you. We will be hanging out together. Oh, you're so cute, little wing. All right, down to business. So the buttons and dial settings that I've chosen have come about from a lot of trial and error, and these completely work for me. So try to pick the ones that you like. Actually, if you don't know what you're doing, just start with mine, because they're the best, and then sort of switch them up. You'll find that, you know, a button doesn't make sense to you, you can change it out. So let's give you a couple of prerequisites. The first one being is you need to touch your touch screen. You need to turn your touch screen on. So dive into the menu and go down to button dial settings under the little wrench or spanner. Apparently that's what the Brits call it. And scroll down to the last bit of pages, the last page, and turn on your touch settings. You need this because the touch screen on the X-T3 and X-T4 can actually act as buttons. The next thing you want to do is hold down the display back button, and that will bring up this little graphic screen that shows you all the buttons and dials that you can change. Now this will vary with cameras, but pretty much all the Fujifilm cameras, if you hold down the display back button, it'll bring up this menu. All right, so let's start at the top. My function 1 button at the top of the camera is my movie silent control on or off. Now, if you have silent movie control on, when you switch to video, now the settings are actually saved on the screen. In the lower right on the screen, you'll see your settings. So you could change your shutter speed and your aperture and your film simulation and all that stuff. And then when you go back to photo mode, then you have your settings saved for pictures. So having silent movie on is not so much about it being quiet to the camera. It's that the settings are on the screen and are saved for when you shoot movies to when you shoot photos. Okay, function button number 2 on the front is my face detection toggle on off. If I want a single focus point, I'm going to focus on this plant. I have a single focus point that I focus on, but if there's a person, I can touch the front button and face detection comes on. And it can function. It can find a face. I do find that I bump it sometimes, but I've gotten so used to it being there. You might find you bump it when you grab the camera. All right, up on the directional pad, I have white balance, and I used to have it on the right. That's the default, but it quickly, went away because it was getting bumped accidentally. So up for white balance, and I pretty much stay around a K value of 5,000, 5,300. And one thing I love about the X-T3 is that it has all the white balances listed as opposed to changing each digit in some of the newer cameras. All right, so function button left, I left as the default, which is your film simulation. Okay, my right D-pad is my select custom settings. I love the settings because, especially on some of the newer cameras, you can name your custom settings. Like one of them is called My Eterna. Made that up myself. So this is, it's not just film simulation. You can pick shadow detail, highlights, how much you want to sharpen. Now just know this only applies to the JPEGs you're shooting. If you're shooting, and by the way, you should always shoot JPEG and RAW. Even if you process mostly RAWs, it's always nice to see what the camera's doing. And I find even as a great RAW processor that I am, I could rarely match the JPEG like exactly because of the little mojo they add. So I always shoot JPEG and RAW, but know that these custom settings apply only to the JPEGs you're shooting, and if you're shooting video, of course. Now, to set up your custom settings, that's a whole other video, but you basically pick the settings you want, make sure you have your Q menu open, and hold down the Q button, and that will ask you if you want to save that into one of the 7 custom settings. How's it going? How you doing? You good? You good? You're not even moving. He's good, he's good. He just want a little belly rub. Okay, the touch screen. Now for a while, I wasn't using the touch swipes because you can set up little swipes to be actually extra buttons. I wasn't using them at first because sometimes I would accidentally hit them and I wasn't so much into the touch screen, but now I kind of love them. So for my up one, that is if I want to transfer images via Wi-Fi to my phone. So I can swipe up and it activates the Wi-Fi looking for my phone. And on the phone with Fujifilm's excellent app, I'll transfer my photos and I can post them, yada yada. So that's my up. For my left, I actually have an electronic level. I always shoot crooked. So every now and then I'll swipe to the left and have that level going off there. That's a good one. For my right is my timer. This used to be on my quick menu, but if you go to the quick menu, you actually have to move your cursor down to get to the timer. And I like to use the timer if I'm going to be in a picture or if the camera's on a tripod, you want to set a timer. And the quickest way is to just swipe right and the timer's there. Now, when I swipe down, I'm able to choose the type of shutter that I'd like. Now, the default is the mechanical shutter. That's the one you hear. If I want to be completely silent, I'll shoot an electronic shutter. But for the most part, I like to hear the little clunk. So what I do is I have it on mechanical plus electronic. And so this just means like mechanical is always working unless the sun is super bright out and I'm shooting at 1.2. The camera shutter only goes to 8,000th of a second, but with electronic shutter, you can shoot at 1 over like a gazillion or something and it'll freeze the action. I forgot the directional pad down. For the directional pad down, I make that my playback button so that I have full right-handed control. So if I shoot a picture and I don't have playback activated, I can actually just press down and I get my playback. So I don't have to reach across the camera because the playback button is on the left side. There you have it, guys. Button dial settings for the Fujifilm XT3, XT4. All right, I'll see you guys next time.